Hello and welcome to episode 77 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the show of shows, and everything in between. We are live over at twitch.tv/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all of that good stuff. It is snowy where I'm at. I don't know about you. A freezing rain warning. That doesn't sound good. It's been cold. It's been snowy. It's been very wintry around here. It's almost like winter, kind of kicking out at 2, so to speak, in terms of being a very mild and dry winter for where I'm at. And now it is just cold and very cold and moist, among other things. So wherever you are, I hope you are warm, comfortable, dry, cool, whatever you need to be at temperature wise to enjoy this very podcast. Like I said, twitch.tv/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram threads, you name it, I'm on it. Plus the podcast, if you want an audio only format, is available over at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I got a gash. I don't know if you can see it. If you're, again, you'd have to be watching the video version. I got a gash on my head. I hit my head inside a crawl space earlier this week. Rummaging through some old games, taking some games, getting rid of some games. I've been moving games. I've been moving some games recently, kind of clearing out old games that I just don't need, don't want anymore. And when you take them to like a store or something like that, obviously, the store's got to make money. So the markup on what you give them and then what they turn around and sell it for is often extremely high, often very high. But my thought process was, you know what? I just don't have the time, the energy, the interest in going through Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist and all that stuff. So I'm very happy to have gotten rid of bins, like Rubbermaid bins full of games. So, bittersweet, but the reality was I had not been playing those games. I probably wasn't going to play those games. I thought, I thought for the longest time that I was going to be the type of person that would keep old consoles, right? Oh man, gonna fire up a PS2, right? You're gonna play fire up a PS2, gonna fire up a PS3 or something, right? And obviously, like, you don't need to keep around some of the old consoles because of backwards compatibility. Therefore, if you wanted to play, say, PS1 games and you had a PS3, you could put, PS1 games in a PS3. So you couldn't put PS2 games in a PS3, at least unless you had the launch edition, the day one edition of the PS3. But the point is I was like, realistically, with alternative methods for playing, these older games, whether you were emulating them or whatever you were doing, there are a variety of ways to play old video games these days. And I also find myself going back to older games less and less. I mean, my backlog now typically consists of, games that came out in the last, 4 or 5 years. So I'm not necessarily itching to go back and play, original Killzone, for example. That's maybe a weird example to give, but I'm not going back and being like, oh man, Grand Theft Auto 3. Actually, Grand Theft Auto 3 is a weird example because I did play a Grand Theft Auto 3 on my iPad, courtesy of Netflix and their game subscription service. So if you don't need to keep a copy of Grand Theft Auto 3 around if you have something like Netflix. And, obviously that means that you no longer own the games. You're kind of, leasing them and part of the subscription service. And trust me, we'll get to the news in just a moment in terms of getting rid of, the ownership of games. There's quite a lot to talk about in terms of, the wake of subscription services. You don't own these games anymore, yada, yada, yada. But for me, realistically, like, I play a lot of games on PC now. If I can get away with playing every game on my PC, I will try to. Obviously, I'm looking forward to stuff like the Nintendo Switch 2 whenever that comes out. Curious to see what, the future of PlayStation hardware and Xbox hardware is like. But for me, a lot of that, my PC gaming comes from the fact that I do this show, right? I do this show. I record video of game footage, and it is a hell of a lot easier recording and capturing game footage when you are playing that game on a PC, because you don't often need additional hardware to capture that footage versus if I have like two monitors here. If I were to plug a PS5 into one of these monitors and play games on, I would then need to get a separate capture device that goes into the PC to, record the footage of that game. Obviously, the PlayStation and the Xbox have their own internal recording methods for capturing game footage and all that stuff, but it's not what I'm looking for. It's a little too simplistic for my taste. So, here I am, damn near 30 and a PC gamer, despite being a console kid for my entire life. So thank you so much for joining the show today. That's my old man ramble for the week. We got a huge amount of news to talk about coming up on the show. We're going to talk about an end of an era as it relates to Rock Band 4. Some news around a huge amount of game industry layoffs. It wouldn't be an episode of Glitch Report without talking about game industry layoffs. Plus, we have some news around tennis, Ubisoft, Rocksteady, and so much more. We are going to take a very quick break, and we'll be right back. Stick around. Welcome back to the show. For those that are watching this live, you may be aware, you may not be aware, that there is a Xbox and Bethesda Developer Direct that is happening at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is currently at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Maybe I can get this show done with by the time that Developer Direct happens. But for those curious, we'll talk more about it, next week. But Developer Direct, as it relates to Xbox and Bethesda, is really 4 of their studios, kind of diving a little bit deeper into the games that they're making, with extended looks, developer interviews, like that sort of thing. This isn't like we're going to announce game after game after game or anything like that. Though I guess one game will be revealed at this Developer Direct. That is going to be Machine Games' Indiana Jones game. But also, they're also going to have Obsidian's Avowed, Oxide Games' Ara History Untold, and Ninja Theory's Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. Though there could be some surprises, I don't really know what to expect. That'll be going on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, all of those good places, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If the show runs long, I apologize. Though I will probably watch that showcase as soon as I'm done with recording this podcast. I don't know if I'll do it live. I don't know. It just really depends on timing. So let's try to get through this show, and then we will talk more about it. I did mention an end of an era, and it's an end of an era indeed. Rock Band 4's weekly DLC support is ending after 8 years. Rock Band 4, the last Rock Band game, and also, the last, kind of bastion for plastic, rock music based instrument, video games for lack of a better word, right? Now, obviously we've had Guitar Hero. There's Rocksmith by Ubisoft, but the Rocksmith is more of a tool to learn guitar than anything else. Guitar Hero had its spin-offs like DJ Hero and Band Hero. Remember Band Hero? Band Hero was basically, we introduced all the, we caught up to Rock Band in terms of the drums and the vocals and all that stuff. But really, we should have a game that has the word band in it too. But the only difference between Band Hero and Rock Band is that Band Hero mostly focused on more kids-friendly pop music, if I remember correctly, which competed with Rock Band's Lego Rock Band. But the point is that Rock Band made by the good folks at Harmonix. Harmonix now owned by your friends and mine at Epic Games, the Fortnite people. They went on to make Fortnite Festival, a game mode in Fortnite that does not necessarily, capture the whole spirit of Rock Band. Part of the reason for that, of course, is that there isn't plastic instruments to play in Fortnite. But just, the whole thing with Rock Band is that you were drunk with your friends, singing. Basically, it was a more involved version of karaoke, right? And part of what made Rock Band such a legendary thing was, the constant weekly DLC. People being like, oh man, this week they added, Foo Fighters. Oh man, this week they added, the entire discography of Megadeth or the Beatles Rock Band. Though I don't remember if the Beatles Rock Band had DLC. But it was like, you remember things like, oh, AC/DC is like exclusive to, and this could have very well changed at some point, but I remember like AC/DC is like exclusive to Rock Band. Like Rock Band DLC got so big that they started putting it on discs, being like, okay, if you don't want to download these songs and buy these songs individually, here is a collection of AC/DC songs or whatever. And 8 years is a hell of a run for any game as far as DLC and especially weekly DLC is concerned. But again, Rock Band is not what it used to be, because plastic instruments and multiplayer gaming is not what it used to be, right? If Rock Band was at its peak, even within the last few years, you'd imagine that stuff like COVID-19, the pandemic, would kill it as well. Again, especially in terms of that local multiplayer, right? You could obviously, fire up an online game and be like, I want to sing, and then, find people that want to play the drums or guitar or whatever. And that's kind of what Fortnite Festival is. But, an end of an era, and it is sad to see. There is a statement put out by Harmonix here. This is a news story that I pulled from Video Games Chronicles. As always, shout out to Video Games Chronicles. Since the franchise debuted, the studio has added almost 3,000 songs to Rock Band as DLC, according to Harmonix veteran Daniel Sussman, who is now a senior project manager at parent company Epic Games. Sussman says, many of you reading this own a good chunk of this content, and we remain committed to protecting that investment. To be very clear, you can play the songs you own within Rock Band 4 as long as you like. While the game's last weekly DLC will arrive on January 25th, Sussman said all other live services will continue as normal, including rival sessions, online play, and everything else. Since being acquired by Epic in 2021, Harmonix has been focused on its new free-to-play music game, Fortnite Festival. And I don't like calling it a free-to-play music game because you have to launch Fortnite in order to play Fortnite Festival. It's not like you don't get, it's all bundled in. It's all one thing. But whatever. If you are a fan of the rhythm game category, Fortnite Festival is the place to be. And with the support for Rock Band 4 instruments coming, this is not the time to hang up your guitars just yet. We deliberated long and hard about how to frame the last blast of Rock Band DLC of this era. The last 2 weeks will feature some tearjerkers that sum up our feelings about this moment. We thank you for your commitment and passion for this wonderful game. Harmonix's latest game was added to Fortnite last month alongside 2 other live service experiences, Fortnite Lego and Fortnite Rocket Racing. Fortnite Rocket Racing, if you forget, is from the folks that made Rocket League. This is an interesting little statistic here. This is something that kind of blew my mind. I was surprised to hear about this in regards to Fortnite. Console users reportedly spent over 1.6 billion hours playing Fortnite in December. What do you think about that? Which is more than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, Warzone, EA Sports Football Club 2024, Grand Theft Auto 5 and the Grand Theft Auto Online and Roblox combined. That is more hours than Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and 3, Warzone, EA Sports Football Club, Grand Theft Auto, and Roblox combined. So you can see why they might be like, you know what? We can convince a couple of these people who are still playing Rock Band to move over to Fortnite if that is their thing. However, for me, not to sound like an old man, I already am. We already mentioned it at the top of the show. But I think if I were to want to play Rock Band, I would go play Rock Band. The problem is you can't find Rock Band because you can't find any of the instruments because all the instruments are super expensive because they're rare collector's items because they haven't made new ones in a long time. So, epic. Oh, could you imagine if you went to like the fucking Walmart and then you're like looking at plastic instruments and you're like, oh, hell yeah, dude, I love Guitar Hero and Rock Band. And then you look at the sticker on the box and it says Fortnite and you're like, I thought Fortnite was like all about like, you know, Michael Phelps shooting John Cena while, you know, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, you know, drives a car over a valley or whatever the fuck you do in Fortnite. But, yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Rocksteady's co-founders have established a new studio. If you remember, I think this was last year. We talked about Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker. They left the Batman Arkham. Oh, this was in 2022. This would have been late. This probably would have been like early 2023 or late 2022. We talked about this, but Rocksteady co-founders Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker have reportedly formed a new development studio called 100 Star Games. While the studio has yet to be officially announced, Polygon spotted that industry veterans are listed as directors of the London-based company on business information website Endole. It also has listing on the Great Place to Work website, which reads 100 Star Games is a video game startup based in East London. Our ethos is for creating a small team of only 100 industry veterans and emerging talents who are committed to crafting cutting-edge gaming experiences that inspire and captivate players worldwide. So I guess the opposite of whatever Rocksteady's doing with Suicide Squad. Man, we'll talk about Suicide Squad towards the end of the show, but man, it really seems like Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker were like, fuck this, we're gonna just make our own studio. We got, listen, motherfucker, we made the greatest superhero video game of all time, Batman Arkham Asylum. And then you know what? We made 2 pretty good sequels to that game as well. So like, we're gonna fuck off and not make whatever, you know, our corporate masters at Warner Brothers want us to make, and we're gonna go do our own thing. We got paid. Fuck y'all. And that's exactly what they seem to be doing. And you can go work for 100 Star Games if you want to. Starfield. Starfield, nothing but Starfield. Starfield has some big updates on the way, though its most recent update was delayed, is now out in the Steam beta version, which I have the Game Pass version, so I don't know if I get the beta of this update. It's very weird, but we talked about this a little while ago. You know, the idea that every 6 weeks, you know, Bethesda wants to put out big substantial updates to Starfield. This new update is supposed to feature over 100 fixes and improvements. When was this? Oh, I see. It wasn't actually delayed. This article is I've been bamboozled by the good folks at Video Games Chronicles, or at least they don't give me context for when it was delayed and when it was supposed to be out. But here we go. Let's see here. Bethesda has said it will include a large number of quest fixes, including Eye of the Storm, which has an issue such as being unable to dock with the legacy or data transfer not starting, and temples not showing up in Into the Unknown, which will no longer prevent Constellation from exploring the cosmos. I had an issue where a asteroid just kept following my ship. That was weird. And what else we got here? Sun disk. I don't even know what some of these words mean, but I'll read them off my monitor here. Additional fixes will include sun disk geometry, planet ring shadows, bulldozed objects reappearing when bulldozed objects reappearing when returning to an outpost, ship hatches marked inaccessible, and another fix for asteroids following ships. Like I said, that was an issue. Bethesda recently announced plans to roll out significant new features and fixes for Starfield every 6 weeks or so. So here's the thing. I would actually like to go back to Starfield. Like, I don't feel like I'm done with my time in the game. I finished my first playthrough. I am taking my time with playthrough 2. I would like to make playthrough 2 my only playthrough of Starfield going forward. And I like Starfield, don't get me wrong. For the most part. It's okay. But I think I'm going to need a little more than these, just from what I'm reading. Like, I think I'd like to come back to Starfield in like 3 months. Like, it's January now. What happens to Starfield in like April or something like that? Like, that's kind of what I'm thinking is. Like, I don't know what I'll be playing in April. I don't know what's coming out in like March, April, May, whatever. But to me, I just think I need a little bit more from Starfield, either to make it feel fresh or to make it feel significantly improved and refined by the time I go back to it. For those who maybe spent less time with Starfield, great. I think you'll probably have a better time with Starfield now than I did at launch. Again, I like Starfield. I would almost call myself a Starfield defender, which is stupid because it's made by Microsoft, a company that does not need defending, but here we are. But for those excited, enjoy it, or maybe we'll see you back in 6 weeks or so. I don't know where to put these news stories. I was talking to somebody about the podcast. They had some very, very nice things to say about the podcast and have been listening for a long time with this podcast. And they were like, you know what? I really appreciate the way you kind of, handle the news topics and also your personal experience with games and all that stuff. And I took a lot of that to heart, and I don't quite know where to, because these news stories are not going away. Every week we'll have a new one, multiple new ones. So I don't quite know where to put these types of news stories. Do I do them at the top of the show and then move on? Do I leave them till the end? Today I decided to put them in the middle. And this middle section of the show is what I like to call the layoff block. Thunderful Group, Embracer, and Lords of the Fallen publisher CI Games, and Dead by Daylight studio Behavior Interactive. All of those studios have announced layoffs. Every single one of them. Where do we begin? We'll start with Thunderful. We got here Swedish video game holding company Thunderful has announced plans to lay off a fifth of its staff. We're looking at about 20%. That's some quick math, huh? The group would consist of around 30 subsidiaries, including 7 development studios and 3 publishers, released a statement on the 17th saying it was planning to restructure operations for strengthened long-term competitiveness. According to the statement, the restructuring is down to a number of overinvestments made by Thunderful in the last few years. Back when interest rates were low, all these big companies thought that money was free, that money grew on fucking trees or something, and then took on more staff, more people than they could sustain once people went back to work post-pandemic, couldn't work from home because the company that they work for said, no, fuck you, show up at this office. We pay good money for this office. You're going to show up. We'll throw a pizza party if you show up to work. Whatever. Quote, these investments have proven unsubstantial given the current industry climate, which has resulted in the group being particularly affected by challenging market conditions. The new management team and the board of directors have identified the need to restructure the group and focus its efforts on the strategic assets with the best long-term prospects. The company now plans to lay off around 20% of its workforce. According to the website, it currently has close to 500 employees in Europe, which means around 100 employees will be affected. To ensure and strengthen the viability of the group, we have found no alternative other than to reduce costs and focus the business on areas with the best future growth and profitability prospects, Thunderful Group CEO Martin Walfiz said in a statement. I wonder if he's taking a pay cut. I wonder if he's like tightening his pulling himself up by his bootstraps. I wonder if he's struggling to make ends meet. I wonder if the board of the directors and the new management team are taking pay cuts in any of this. No, right? No, they why would they? Because they need to go buy a second Porsche. They need to remodel the bathroom that they just finished doing 6 months ago. They need green marble in their basement or whatever the fuck these people are all about. So very unfortunate to hear about the good folks at Thunderful. Hopefully those that are affected land on their feet. And of course, as we know, Embracer Group is just a fucking smoking hole in the ground. It's just a shit show that never ends at Embracer Group. Embracer Group has now laid off a sizable portion of Gearbox support studio, Lost Boys Interactive. The studio provided development support on the Borderlands series. Lost Boys, which was founded in 2017, is a support studio which has worked with Gearbox on a number of projects, including Borderlands 3 and Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I think Tiny Tina Wonderlands might be the best Borderlands game. In 2022, the studio was acquired by Gearbox, which then, in turn, got purchased by Embracer Group, and saw its staff grow to over 400 people following the acquisition. However, as reported by Aftermath, the studio was hit on Friday with numerous layoffs. Although it's not yet clear exactly how many people have been laid off, former studio producer Jared Pace posted on LinkedIn that it had been, quote, a sizable portion, including himself, quote, still trying to understand the scope of it all, he added, but sadly, this is a song and dance we're all familiar with. Yada, 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 you know the rest with Embracer Group. CI Games, the folks that published Lords of the Fallen, the 2023 reboot of Lords of the Fallen, reboot, remake, whatever the fuck you want to call Lords of the Fallen, is laying off about 10% of its staff. Developers at its Hexworks and Underdog Studio have reportedly are reportedly among those affected. This is a quote from CI Games CEO. To preserve business strength and stability, CI Games has made the tough but necessary decision to implement a targeted round of redundancies affecting approximately 10% of employees across the company. We would like to thank each of them for the part they've played during their time with us. Further business optimizations are being made to organize pipelines and processes. And Hexworks are the people that made Lords of the Fallen. So Lords of the Fallen developer getting cut. And Sniper Ghost Warrior Studio Underdog also being affected. Just to clarify, Rebellion make the Sniper Elite games. Underdog make the Sniper Ghost Warrior games. I know there are two semi-popular-ish Sniper series out there. Just to clarify, this is Sniper Ghost Warrior, not Sniper Elite. They also claim that CI Games' marketing department has been hit particularly hard by the cuts, with most of the team made redundant. Maybe if they had the opportunity to better market something like Lords of the Fallen when it came out, they wouldn't need to cut these people in the first place. But who am I? What do I know? I'm just a man with a podcast. And then finally, and this one hits more close to home, and I'm only saying that because this is folks within Canada, though obviously layoffs and the crushing boot of capitalism is felt all around the world. So I'm not playing favorites here, but Dead by Daylight studio Behavior Interactive has reportedly made a round of layoffs. Sources told Kotaku that around 45 employees were laid off last week across different departments at the company's Montreal headquarters. Now, Behavior Interactive hasn't officially commented on the cuts, but at least one employee has discussed them publicly on LinkedIn. Game developers now this is, think about this. Here's something for you. Game developer Farhan Noor, who has been tracking industry job cuts dating back to the start of 2023 on videogamelayoffs.com, estimates that around 10,500 game industry employees were laid off last year, and around 3,000 planned cuts are thought to have been confirmed so far this year. I don't know what the state of Dead by Daylight is. I know that we've talked about it on the show. Making a live service game is hard. It is very, very hard, right? Even in the scenario where it is a successful game like Dead by Daylight, I think we can all agree, whether we play it or not, that when it comes to those horror multiplayer, style games, the Dead by Daylight is the most popular one. We don't see people talking about that Texas Chainsaw Massacre game. We don't see people talking about, fucking Friday the 13th or Evil Dead or whatever. And obviously those games have kind of come and gone already, so there's no point talking about them again. And I know they just announced that Alan Wake is coming to Dead by Daylight, but, maybe this is why Dead by Daylight is partnering up with Supermassive Games to make that the casting of Frank Stone single player, adventure game in the style of something like Until Dawn or The Quarry, right? Maybe they are seeing that the writing is kind of on the, I don't know. I don't play Dead by Daylight. I don't want to play Dead by Daylight. I don't care about getting into what is working and what isn't working about Dead by Daylight. I'm just speculating here. But maybe they have seen the writing on the walls as it comes to at least this game being a, long running live service multiplayer game, and realizing that they have to pivot or they have to, branch out, try something different, which is maybe why we're seeing them partner with Supermassive Games for the casting of Frank Stone game. Don't know when that game's coming out. But maybe but then again, multiplayer games are very hot right now. And while Supermassive Games has done an amazing job of consistently putting out, Until Dawn, The Quarry, Man of Medan, Devil in Me, all this stuff, is that going to be more popular than the game that lets you run around and play as Michael Myers or the alien from Alien? Probably not. There's a reason why so much of the industry has pivoted towards multiplayer gaming. It's because it's just a more popular form of play these days. That I'm not saying that Supermassive Games doesn't make good games. I'm not saying that, adventure games and action adventure games and all, well, it's more adventure than action adventure. But the point is, I'm not saying those types of games can't be popular. I'm just saying that once you play it, it's done, right? You play through that game once and you've kind of seen it all. You could go back and play it multiple times. But if you're, say, a Twitch streamer, let's say you're a YouTube gaming content creator, and you really like a game and you just want to keep making content and videos and streams and whatnot about a game, wouldn't it be a lot easier to do so if it was a multiplayer game that kind of had never-ending, content or variations to play? But we'll see. I wish best of luck to all the folks that are affected at Behavior Interactive, as well as Hexworks and Underdog, and Lost Boys and Embracer in general, and Thunderful Group. I hope that everybody lands on their feet. We're going to take another break and we'll continue on with the news. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. There's not a lot of love in the game industry. There's not a lot of love as far as I'm concerned. And it seems like I'm not the only one who recognizes a lack of love in the video game world as exists today. So my friends at 2K have boldly asked the question, tennis anyone? 2K has announced a Top Spin reboot. There's also a teaser trailer out now. The tennis series returns with Top Spin 2K25. What is there to say about this? Top Spin 2K25 is the must-play sports game from 2K that fully immerses fans into the world of tennis. Tennis anyone? What's there else to say? Oh, apparently, hey, you know what? Listen, I got something interesting. How about this for a little fun fact or rumor? It might not be a fact, it might be a rumor, because I don't think it's actually been confirmed yet. Kotaku, my good friends at Kotaku, claimed that in May of 2022, a reboot of the Top Spin tennis series was in development in Novato, California, and being made by the 2K studio Hangar 13 under the codename Project Hammer. Hangar 13 are the folks that made Mafia 3, and the Mafia remake, remaster, whatever they want to call that game. It was also reported that Hangar 13's Brighton office was leading early development of a Mafia prequel built with the Unreal Engine 5. Which, I don't know how far back you want to go when you're making a Mafia game, right? It's almost like, how would I put it? It's almost like the Red Dead problem, right? Of like, you can only go so far in the timeline of things with making any type of period piece, right? You know, this is the 1930s, right? How do you like, can you make a Mafia game where they have stick and rocks and you're a caveman? I don't think so. I don't think that's how any of this works. So I don't know how far back they're going to go when it comes to making a Mafia prequel, but hey, maybe we'll find out eventually. But we do know for certain that tennis is back, y'all. Grab life by the balls. Speaking of grabbing life and running with it, Stalker 2, I cannot think of another game that has been in development under such crazy conditions. I'm sure there are games that have been made in active war zones and illegal occupations and stuff like that. But GSC Game World has confirmed another delay for Stalker 2: Heart of Chernobyl. Now, this game was most recently scheduled for release in the first quarter of this year, which we all knew wasn't going to happen. The post-apocalyptic shooter sequel will now arrive on September 5th, 2024. The Ukrainian studio said it made the decision to delay the game based on fan feedback it received after putting it in the hands of thousands of players for the first time in the second half of last year. While it said it received plenty of positive feedback about the sequel, it also felt that, quote, on the technical side of things, the game needs more time. Now, Stalker 2's release date was seemingly been something of a moving target since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February 2022. At the time, GSC Game World was based in Kyiv, but has since partially relocated to the Czech Republic. Not all of the staff were able to leave Ukraine, however, with a number of developers continuing to work on the game from the war-torn country where their lives have been turned upside down. Throughout the frankly, this is a message from the studio, quote, throughout the frankly challenging development process, we understood that the time was of the team's main essence. Which is a message they published on Tuesday. It might have been translated. I'm not too sure. Quote, seeing the scope of polishing and understanding that we can't push your patience too much, we were absolutely dedicated to releasing the game in Q1 2024, and we worked extra hard to meet the release window. That, however, doesn't change the fact that at the beginning of this year, we still witnessed a certain amount of technical imperfections that hold Stalker 2 back from below the expected standards for our final experience, our fans have been waiting for. While there is absolutely no way to make another delay sound less dim, we decided to be clear about our reasons to postpone the game for the sake of yet another wave of polishing. Stalker 2 will be released on Xbox Series X and S and PC and will be available on Game Pass on day one. You better believe that I'm going to be playing that game. I got it. I got to know, right? There's no, like, I got to know. Now, here's the thing about Stalker. I don't think those Stalker games are great. I don't think, like, if I go to my Steam, and maybe I just need to, like, sit down and play one and fucking just figure it out. But it always seemed like a more confusing Fallout. Obviously, those games kind of came out as first-person games prior to, Fallout 3 and all that stuff. But what I have here, I have Stalker Clear Sky and Stalker Call of Pripyat, and I just find those games like borderline impenetrable. But maybe Stalker 2 will be different. It definitely seems like it's a game that wants to respect players' time a little bit more than perhaps past games, or at least what people have come to expect from the Stalker games. So, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I gotta know. I just gotta know. What else is there to say? This is a very quick news story because I do not want to talk about this at all. Square Enix has confirmed that foam stars will contain some AI-generated art. Specifically, the team used Midjourney to create in-game icons. So, like little pictures for your characters and all that stuff. Now, I'm going to say this. I talked about AI last week on the podcast. I'm not a fan. But I'm also a hypocrite. I have messed around with, AI art generators in the past. In fact, I even used one to create a episode, picture for this very podcast. And you'll know it was AI because it looked like shit. It was a bad idea. I'll admit it. It seemed like a good idea at the time. Clearly, it was a bad idea. Do I love the idea that Square Enix is already messing around with AI? Not particularly. Am I weirdly glad that it's only being used for tiny little, what I assume are tiny little, in-game icons? Maybe. But I don't love it. And I have also used ChatGPT in the past. I don't love that. It's pretty bad at its job. Would I feel better about AI if it was actually good at recreating art? It's not creating art from scratch. It's recreating art based on sources that it stole. No, like none of this makes me feel good, right? Having used it in the past, I don't feel good about it. Seeing it now, I don't feel good about it. Did I care about foam stars prior to this announcement? No. Do I care about foam stars now that I know that AI art is being used in the game? No, I don't necessarily want to play foam stars in general. But this is a reminder that, even some, under the radar game like foam stars is using AI generated art, and you will definitely see more of that going forward in any and all games. And again, it'll just be up to you to decide if that is your thing. If you were like fucking stoked about foam stars, fine, whatever, more power to you. If you weren't, I don't know what to tell you. Got two more news stories. Well, one is more of an opinion thing. Well, actually, they're both opinion things. Let's get into it. So Ubisoft kind of rebranded their subscription service. It is Ubisoft Plus. They also offer a Ubisoft. They have two tiers now. It's two-tiered system. It's the haves and the have-nots. Ubisoft Plus God, what a fucking awful name. Really? Ubisoft Plus Premium? Actually, that's probably no better than like Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, now that I think about it. But the point is the Plus Premium just does not roll off the tongue. So Here we go. Ubisoft Plus Premium, which is available on PC, Xbox, and Luna for a monthly fee of $18 a month, includes day one access to new releases, a large backlog of titles and DLC, early access to selected games, and more. There's also Ubisoft Plus Classics, which already offered a curated selection of back catalog games to PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium subscribers, is now available for PC players at $8 a month. That's how I decided to get, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. So I did the Ubisoft Plus Premium thing. Came out to like $22 Canadian. And I get a month to play through that game and maybe check out Avatar or Assassin's Creed Mirage or whatever. So that's how I chose to do it. I did not go out of my way to go buy Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. I specifically just gave them their money and kind of went about it. So what's the news story? Philippe Tremblay, director of subscriptions at Ubisoft, told GameIndustry.biz that Ubisoft Plus has attracted millions of subscribers since originally launching as Uplay Plus in September of 2019. He claimed 10% of subscribers have never previously played the company's games before, and the service enjoyed its biggest month to date in October of 2023. The same month, Ubisoft's SVP of Strategic Partnerships and Business Development, Chris Early, predicted a future where physical game sales continue to decline, but said he doesn't think they'll ever go away completely. Tremblay reiterated that Ubisoft will continue to offer different ways for players to consume its games. Quote, "The point is not to force users to go down one route or another," he said. "We offer purchase, we offer subscription, and it's the gamer's preference that is important here. We are seeing some people who buy choosing to subscribe now, but it all works." While buying games remains by far the most dominant business model, Tremblay said there's massive growth potential if consumers can get used to not owning the games they play. Tremblay said, "I don't have a crystal ball, but when you look at the different subscription services that are out there, we have a rapid expansion over the last couple of years, but it's still relatively small compared to other models," he said. Quote, "One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games," he added. "That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's a transformation that has been a bit slower to happen in games. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress if you resume your game at another time. Your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the games or your engagement with the game. So it's all about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. I still have 2 boxes of DVDs. I definitely understand the gamer's perspective with that, but as people embrace the model, they will see that these games will exist, the service will continue, and you'll be able to access them when you feel like it. That's assuring. Streaming is also a thing that works really well with subscription, so you pay when you need as opposed to paying all the time." I'm of two minds of this. Let's start with him comparing CDs and DVDs. Movie and music piracy was, and still is, a lot more rampant and a lot more popular than the pirating of video games. I'll say that again. Even going back to the Napster, days, LimeWire days of stealing music, stealing movies and pirating movies and music has always been far more popular than the pirating of video games. And the reason I suspect the reason that stuff like Apple Music, Spotify, even iTunes to some extent, and Netflix exist is because the industry needed to find a way to make purchasing movies and music and TV shows, for that matter, as easy as possible. They wanted to make it as easy as they can in comparison to how easy it was to pirate the content itself, right? So they introduced iTunes, changed the world. All of a sudden, people seemed a little bit more comfortable with buying music. Oh, songs are 99 cents and albums like $10 or whatever. That's certainly a lot cheaper than going down to the fucking A&B Sound, not to make another old man reference, but or go to the Future Shop or go to the Walmart or the whatever and buy a CD for like, I don't know, $15 or whatever, like, and I just click the button and it's there, and then I can just transfer it to my iPod, and I don't have to like put a disc in a computer to put music on my iPod or my MP3 player, whatever. Hell yeah, that is a lot easier than the other ways of buying music. And it might be easy enough to, convince me to go the digital media consumption route without necessarily being pushed into piracy, right? Same thing with Netflix. All of a sudden it was like, well, the Blockbuster closed, the Rogers Video closed. What the fuck am I going to do? Oh, well, did you know that you can watch movies on your computer? What? That's fucking crazy. How do you do that? Well, you can subscribe to something like Netflix streaming if you want. I mean, I know that Netflix did the DVDs through the mail and all that shit, but like, really, when we talk about like the thing that Netflix changed, it was you agreeing to not own any of those movies and instead pay a monthly fee to have access to a curated catalog of original and, previously made content that you could watch to your heart's content on a variety of devices. But again, like, games have, been digital for a while, going back to even something like the PS3. And while, yes, you lose the ability to buy, then resell or trade games in this digital route, the fact is that like piracy just hasn't been as rampant. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, and there are some consoles that are way worse than others. Nintendo Switch, I'm looking at you. Your piracy is fucking out of control, but it just doesn't, like, I knew people who weren't even like that tech savvy who were pirating music, and I'm not going to out these people or anything like that, but like, we all knew somebody who was burning DVDs of fucking Seinfeld seasons or whatever on DVDs on their computer, or pirating music or whatever the case may be, making mixed CDs. Again, I don't mean to make this the old man show, but here we are. So I don't think that Ubisoft subscription services are solving the problem that DVD and CDs had. On the other hand, I would argue that if this makes gaming more affordable, I'm okay with it. And in fact, I would argue that I'm already okay with not owning, as someone who just got rid of a bunch of games, I'm okay with not owning the games that I get through a subscription service, right? Because honestly, even if you owned and bought a digital copy of a Ubisoft game, such as, I don't know, The Crew, you can't play The Crew anyways because they're going to shut down that service. That's an online game that is built into it. It's a game that's is built with online infrastructure. And when they shut that service down, you're not going to be able to play the game. So what difference does it make if you bought it or subscribed to it anyways, if some of these games are going to go away? So them saying, oh, but you can continue your progress. Like, yeah, you can continue your progress with some games, but also if you bought Horizon Forbidden West on a PS5 and then got a second PS5 and put it at your cabin in the woods or whatever, You don't need the subscription. Well, you would need PlayStation Plus. Okay, in fairness, you would need PlayStation Plus to do the cloud saving, right? Continue your progress on one console to another. But like, it's not like streaming games is not there yet. The latency, the internet bandwidth required is not there. But obviously, like, subscriptions are here and they are not going away anytime soon. The problem is that, you know, what are people going to decide? Are they going to, I mean, obviously Ubisoft is smart enough to know that they have to put some of their games on something like Game Pass. I'm playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla on Game Pass. They also need to know that, you know, you can get some of their titles on PlayStation Plus. But at the end of the day, if someone had to choose apples to oranges, Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, depending on your console, and Ubisoft Plus, what are you going to pick? There's only so many subscription services that people can sign up for. People are already cutting the cord on a variety of other subscription services, right? Being like, you know what? I'm only a Netflix and an Amazon Prime house, and that's the only movie services I have. And obviously you'd be crazy to have more than one music subscription service. I can't imagine a scenario where you pay for Apple Music and then a second subscription service or whatever the case may be. But maybe you fucking subscribe to the Amazon Audible, subscription service or whatever. Like, there's only so many subscription services that people can pay for, right? So yes, I'm comfortable with giving them $20 for 1 month to beat Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown in that month, and then I will stop paying for it. But can a subscription service like Ubisoft Plus Premium survive if people are only coming back and forth to it every month or so? We shall see. That's kind of all I have to say. Like, you already know how you feel about subscription services. You already know how you feel about owning games, not owning games. But a lot of games that I play today are games that I don't own, right? Courtesy of something like Game Pass. So I don't expect that trend to go away anytime soon, but I don't know how many more subscription services I will be able to actively pay for month after month after month. And then finally, and I got to load up some notes here, or maybe I can just find I did post it to twitter.com. See if I can find it. So there were some NDAs that people had to sign when the Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League alpha was out. So when you were playing that, you were not allowed to talk about that game. You couldn't show footage, which in fairness, you still can't show footage of you playing that alpha version, but now you can talk about it. And so I, as someone who no longer has that NDA holding me back, I can talk about my time playing Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League during my alpha. I can't show footage, but I can talk about it. So let's talk about it. It's bad. It's not good. It's not. Woo-wee. Man, oh man. From what I've played, Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League ain't shit. It stinks, man. I don't know. So don't let them fool you. Suicide Squad is a multiplayer online, shooter RPG. Yes, you can play that game single player by yourself, but it still requires an online connection. It still has like a battle pass that you can, get more cosmetic loot from. And it does have a story mode. However, I feel like a lot of the stuff that people come to games like Batman Arkham Asylum for are secondary at best when it comes to what Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is all about. It is bland. It's generic. It's poorly executed in some respects. And the the nicest thing I can say about it is that it's disappointing. So I ended up liking it a lot less than I thought I did. And I'm someone who is down to play a multiplayer loot focused shooter. Like I played a lot of Destiny, and if I'm not shooting, I still like collecting loot. I played a lot of Diablo 4. Like I will show up for one of these games. I'm not, Division 2, I'm not above it. So the thing I'd say is like the characters and their interactions are okay. Like the cast is good. Samoa Joe as King Shark is good. Like that stuff is fine. The characters, when they're chatting it up, is fine. But the story is pretty bland. Your reasoning for needing to kill the Justice League is not great. But when the unique story that they've crafted is boring and bad, it's often made worse by, Rocksteady's piss poor attempts at, connecting it back to the Batman Arkham trilogy. There's a story mission in the game that takes place in a museum. And the story mission is you going on this guided tour inside this museum. And they basically made like a Batman Arkham exhibit in this museum. And this museum retells the story of the 3 Batman Arkham games, Asylum, City, and Night. And it just feels like weirdly cheap. Like it just feels lame and something that like, it almost has like a direct to DVD quality to it of like, hey guys, just remember that this is part of a larger universe that you actually care about. The Batman flavor is so half-assed, right? And it's so disappointing that this is Kevin Conroy's last performance as Batman. And it just feels so shoehorned in. Now, from a single player perspective, the presentation is not friendly. The main menu assumes that you want to play the game multiplayer. And when you start the game and you're playing it, you might find side quests and events along the way, right? It'll be like, oh, stop Brainiacs, whatever, from taking over this building or whatever. And you stand there for like 5 minutes or whatever, or 3 minutes, and you shoot Brainiac's, minions, and then stand in a circle and let it fill up. And then you'd be like, hey, you secure the checkpoint. And when you do that, you'll get a reward, right? You'll get a better gun. But it like stops the whole game and says, look at this gun. The menu is going to take up this entire screen. Look at this gun. Do you want to use this gun? Do you want to switch to using this gun? And it's like, dog, why don't you just like put that gun in my backpack and I'll look at it like, 5-10 minutes later. Let me like move on from what I've been doing and regroup and reconvene instead of like stopping the game entirely to be like, do you want this shotgun? I don't know. What do you want to do? It really breaks up the flow of the game. And I can imagine it's even worse when you're playing with like 3 other people who are all standing around being like, well, I don't know if I want to use this shotgun or not. It just breaks up the flow. It's so monotonous at times. I played as all 4 characters. My least favorite was Captain Boomerang. My favorite was Deadshot. The problem I have with Captain Boomerang is as you might expect, he has a boomerang that you throw, and then he basically has kind of merged with some of the Flash's teleportation abilities in terms of that he can just move really fast. He's not teleporting, he's moving really fast. But the problem is that when you throw Captain Boomerang's boomerang and then try to teleport to it, because it's a 3D game, it's very hard to get an idea of where the boomerang is in the context of where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to go from rooftop to rooftop in Metropolis and you throw the boomerang, it's really hard to get a sense of, is the boomerang across onto the rooftop now? Or is it still halfway, down the street, before I teleport to it? So there was a lot of times where I would throw the boomerang, hit the teleport button, and then I would miss my jump entirely because I just couldn't figure out where the boomerang was in the context of the environment. Harley Quinn has stolen some of Batman's tech in the game. So she has like a Batman drone that follows her around, and she uses that drone to swing sort of Spider-Man style from grapple point to grapple point The problem is that the drone is constantly moving. So unlike Spider-Man, where the buildings are stationary, thus allowing you to swing from them whenever you get close to them, there's a couple of scenarios where the Batman drone that Harley Quinn has is not where I need it to be to continue swinging. So I'm often missing my swinging and just falling to the ground when I play as Harley Quinn. In the case of King Shark, he has like a big jumping ability. So you're just kind of jumping and bounding from building to building. It's pretty effortless, but it's also maybe the most boring in the sense that like, oh, King Shark has a super jump. He can just charge up his jump and air dash and all that stuff and whatever, it's fine. Deadshot has the, I don't know whose tech it is. I don't know whose tech he stole. Maybe it's Cyborg's, I don't know. But he has the jetpack. So you're kind of boosting and gliding and stuff like that. And I just found that like in the case of the jetpack the Deadshot has, I could wrap my mind around like, okay, I only have so much fuel in this jetpack before I need to recharge it. I can get this amount of distance. I can do this. I can do that. But the funny thing is that Deadshot plays like Anthem. Like when you give a man a jetpack and loot and an assault rifle, he just ends up playing like Anthem. Anthem, if you don't remember, was the failed live service game by Dragon Age and Mass Effect developer Bungie, put out by, BioWare, put out by EA. Anthem was EA's attempt at making a Destiny style game to compete with people like Bungie, and it was a total failure. It was a total flop. You can probably get the game for like $3 on PlayStation right now. Is it the worst game ever made? No, but you're probably not going to love your time with it. So I'm shocked that the people that made the greatest superhero game of all time, Batman Arkham Asylum, now have a game that features a character that just stinks of Anthem of all things. Frankly, I'm shocked that this is how it turned out. I don't have a lot of hope for Suicide Squad, even though, again, I am down to play that type of looter shooter open world game. And despite, Rocksteady saying that this is, a story-based game for everyone who is a fan of, Batman Arkham to enjoy, I don't think that if you're a fan of that type of game, you're going to find much to enjoy from Suicide Squad, right? And I'm a fan of the type of game that it's pretending it's not, and even I don't necessarily care for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, so really, I don't know what else there is to say about that game, man. Like, we'll hear reviews when that comes out. We'll see how it turns out. Maybe they can pull it together at the very end. But for now, I am not convinced that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is going to be any good based on my time playing it during the closed alpha. But let's talk about good games. Let's talk about better games. All right. Where do we want to start? The 3 games that I've been primarily playing are Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and God of War 2018. That is the reboot of God of War. Prince of Persia, we'll kind of start with that. So, played the demo, talked about the demo on the podcast, and I really enjoyed the demo. I was like, man, sign me up. This game is awesome. Can't wait to play it. Let's go. I know some people weren't crazy about the demo, maybe not crazy about the way that the story's told, the cutscenes and all of that stuff. But, I was very down to play that sort of side scroller 2D, action game that Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is. So sign me up. I'm good to go. Right. And I recognize that during the demo, they give you powers and abilities that you don't actually get when you are at that story point in the main game. But I was a little surprised at how much of a slow burn Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is. I'm like maybe 5 hours in, and I feel like only now am I starting to get a good sense of a lot of the abilities, the way you're going to use them, the way that the puzzles evolve over time, the way the platforming gets, harder and more advanced as things go along. So I spent probably the first maybe 3 hours being like, man, oh man, they did a disservice presenting this game the way they did during the demo. I know that sounds harsh, but I was just like, I get it, right? These games are all about, hey, you see this locked door? come back to it, you know, later in the game, and you'll have upgrades and abilities to make traversing the puzzle or opening the door. Maybe you'll find that the door is unlocked from the other side of the room that you currently can't get to because you don't know where that room is, and so on and so forth, right? Batman Arkham Asylum is a great example of that, right? You see all sorts of stuff in Batman Arkham Asylum and City and Night, and you're like, huh, I guess I'll have to come back to this, you know, later in the game because I don't have the explosive gel, or I don't have the, you know, I don't have the bat scanner like hacker thing, or I don't have the grappling hook, or, you know, whatever the case is, right? I or my grappling hook, you know, doesn't have the ability to reach that far, you know, whatever the case may be. So I was a little disappointed at the start. I will also say, when it comes to Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, while I don't necessarily come to these games for the story, I am disappointed in just how bland it is. It has some interesting ideas, especially around the sands of time, the passage of time. The premise of the game is you play as this guy named Sargon. You are part of this, like, you know, elite super soldier group meant to defend Persia from its enemies. And one of your own in the group kidnaps the prince of Persia, as the name might suggest, and takes them to like this ancient like mountain temple that's full of a bunch of crazy stuff, and there's some larger things at play there. And at the time I'm like, okay, all right, one of us is the bad guy, stealing the, you know, kidnapping the prince and all this stuff, and eventually it does start to, you know, kind of ask some questions about, you know, the nature of things, of like, oh, the sands of time, and how long has time really passed since you guys, you know, your elite super soldier group kind of entered this entered this mountain and this temple. Are you guys going crazy? Are you the only one that's sane? What's going on, right? Like, it asks some interesting questions that, like, I'm curious to see how it goes. But like, the main plot of like, go rescue the prince, and you play as this dude who isn't even the Prince of Persia, isn't that great. So when you combine that, the kind of a weaker story with not a, you know, an amazing opening start, I almost felt like I was gonna fall off on the game, to be honest. I was like, you know what, like, you know, I only paid $20. It's not that bad. Maybe I'll give this game a pause. But I ended up really getting into it, especially later on in the stream that we did yesterday. There's a full, like, almost 2-hour video up on my YouTube if you want to check out some of the footage of the game from after the demo ends, including a wild cutscene that completely broke for me. That video, if you want to just watch the bug of the cutscene freaking out, that's on my Facebook, that's on my Instagram, that's on my Twitter, and other places if that is your thing. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, if you want to check that out. But like I said, full videos up on my YouTube. But I'm enjoying it, and I want to, you know, looking at, you know, kind of howlongtobeat.com. I'm about 4 hours in, and it seems like it's a game that's probably going to take about 20-30 hours. So, you know, doesn't seem too bad in the grand scheme of things. And for $20, I won't feel like I lost out on anything if I were to stop playing it. But I'm curious to keep going, keep playing it. The problem is that I got a lot of other games on my plate, and I will say that, like, despite Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown not, you know, despite Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown being one of my most anticipated games of 2024, I will not say that I'm outright disappointed in it. I'm maybe a little surprised that it starts out so slow, but I've really enjoyed my time with it. You know, especially as the puzzles get a little bit more intricate, the platforming of like, oh, so like you get an ability where you can basically freeze your physical being in space, right? But you can keep moving. So basically, if I'm climbing a wall, I can climb the wall, freeze myself to where I was, and then keep climbing the wall as my current version, and then teleport back in time to where I was on the wall when I froze myself. So you can get a lot of cool things where it's like, oh, by opening this trap door, it closes the one behind me, so I need to climb halfway up this wall, freeze myself, keep climbing, open the door that closes the other one, then teleport back so I can go through the door that keeps closing every time I try to open it. Stuff like that. The combat is also a little more interesting as you kind of get some new abilities and and things like that, some special moves. So I'm excited to keep going with it. I am very much curious to see, kind of where the gameplay and the mechanics go. I also just like exploring. I did find it a little difficult at times, so I did bump down the difficulty from normal to easy. But I like it. I don't maybe love it just yet, but I'm still invested enough in it to see where it goes. So we'll probably play more of it. Maybe have some more to say about it on next week's show. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I was talking to a friend at work about Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and he said that it is perhaps the most boring Assassin's Creed game he ever played. And I don't know if I'm going to go that far with it, but I will say that Assassin's Creed Valhalla is the biggest Assassin's Creed game that I've ever played, way bigger than something like Assassin's Creed Origins. And a very slow burn, a very, very slow burn. There is a ton of side stuff to do in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, just from the perspective of like, oh, do you want to build up your town, your Viking settlement? Do you want to hunt legendary animals? Do you want to go on raids? Do you want to collect ancient Roman artifacts? Do you want to do there's a lot of drug trip like hallucination missions. I've been on probably at least 2 or 3 missions now where I eat weird mushrooms in the forest and then have to find my way out of the hallucination. And that's kind of weird, and you get some rewards for doing that stuff. But if you're not doing the side stuff, you're doing the main story, and the main story does move at a real glacial pace. So for me right now, my biggest interest with Assassin's Creed Valhalla is just kind of continuing to poke at a lot of the mechanics, poke at the different, things that are available, like, the drinking mini game where you can go into a town and you can be like, I bet you 200 silver that I can drink more than you. And then you play this weird drinking game. And there's a rap battle mini game where you are basically freestyle rap battling other people in this town. And then you can you can bet, wager money to do that. And when you do that and you win, you get charisma. And basically there are parts in the game where if you don't have a high enough charisma, you cannot talk to people to do their side mission or do their story mission and stuff like that. So it's kind of mind boggling the amount of stuff there is in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, but I can also imagine a scenario where, because there's so much stuff, they do have to pace out the game at a much slower pace than, other games that maybe have less content in it. So that is a game that I'll continue to pick at and continue to play. I'm maybe like 9 hours or so into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I'm really enjoying it. A lot of people are going to give a big game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla shit. It's too bloated. It's too slow. There's too much content. You get bored before you're done everything. I am by no means bored. I also find it to be a really good game for, I'm going to throw on a, YouTube video. I'm going to throw on this and that. I'm going to, fuck around with some Netflix content, some Disney Plus stuff, and just go run around and be a Viking for an hour or two or whatever the case may be. So for me, I'm really enjoying it. If you are looking for a more traditional Assassin's Creed type experience, this ain't it. This is not. This is definitely leaning even more to being an action RPG similar to something like The Witcher. I think if you were looking for an Assassin's Creed experience but wanted a little bit of that Witcher RPG flavor to it, I think Assassin's Creed Origins is definitely a much easier start to the game. It also has, in my opinion, a much more interesting main character, a much more interesting main story. And I also will say that I enjoy running around Egypt just from just a setting more than I do England and Norway in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. But there is a lot more stuff to do in Valhalla, and the upgrade mechanics, the upgrade tree is ridiculous, and upgrading your town you could spend hours just upgrading your town, and now I can get assassin, the Assassin's Guild can give me targets to go hunt down in the open world, and I was just running around this town, and I saw a guy who's on my target list, and he has nothing to do with the story, but I stabbed this guy in town and all this crazy stuff. So, obviously if you want a more traditional Assassin's Creed experience, you want to play something like Syndicate. But If you are looking for that RPG experience, I think give Origins a shot. And if you are done with Origins, I think move on to Valhalla. But I bet if you've never played an Assassin's Creed game or didn't even play one of the Assassin's Creed RPGs like Odyssey or Origins, if you got to Valhalla, you'd be like, dude, this game is insane. It might actually be too scary from a mechanics and presentation standpoint. I might need to turn this off because it just seems a little overwhelming. And then there's God of War. I'm pretty early into God of War. I'm like maybe 2 hours into God of War. I'm enjoying it. It looks nice. I will say that compared to other PlayStation games on PC, it does not look nearly as nice as something like Spider-Man Miles Morales, which again, Miles Morales was a PS5 game, or Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. But again, that was a PS5 game as well. But regardless, I'm enjoying my time with it. I'm curious to see where that story goes and all of that stuff. Don't get me wrong, but I really don't have a lot to say about God of War 2018. At least right now. I'm gonna record episode 2 of God of War, my God of War playthrough tomorrow. That's Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time over at my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/GnittWitt. And then we'll put the first 2 episodes of that God of War playthrough up on YouTube later that day. So I've not put episode 1 of my God of War playthrough up on YouTube just yet. I will when I record episode 2, and then we'll just put kind of 1 and 2 up as a season premiere. And then every week we'll have a new episode of God of War 2018 up on YouTube, Friday evening or Friday morning on Twitch live for those that want to do it. And in terms of like, games that are coming out, came across a game. It's a sequel to a game that I haven't played, but that didn't stop me from playing it. I don't know if you ever heard of a game called Turnip Boy Commits Tax Evasion. It's a game where I imagine a boy who is a turnip, does some white collar crimes from the sounds of things. That was a game that came out a few years ago. A game that I never got around to playing. But a new game is out featuring Turnip Boy. And frankly, I'm shocked. Turnip Boy sounds like an absolute menace to society. He seems like a bad dude. And when I woke up this morning, I said to myself, Turnip Boy did what? The new game is called Turnip Boy Robs a Bank. And I got that downloaded now on my PC that is part of Game Pass. I think it's out a variety of other places, but it's launched day 1 on Game Pass. So I'll be checking out Turnip Boy Robs a Bank at some point. We'll probably talk about that next week. And then also Pokemon with guns. The moment we've all been waiting for. They're giving Pokemon guns in the version in a version of Pokemon that can only be described as a knockoff because it is a knockoff, but whatever. Nintendo is not suing these people. And it's not actually called Pokemon, it's called Pal World, and that's coming out tomorrow on Game Pass as well. I'll be checking that out. I don't know if I'm gonna have time to stream myself playing Pal World, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, and God of War 2018, but we'll definitely have some video content out for tomorrow and the weekend. Maybe I just have to record separate videos for Pal World and Turnip Boy. I don't know, but we'll check those out as well. And we'll talk about Pal World, Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, and probably more Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown next week on the podcast. Thank you so much for checking out Glitch Report. I'm going to go quickly try to grab something to eat before the Xbox and Bethesda Developer Direct happens. We'll see how that goes. But I'm going to say thank you so much for checking out Glitch Report. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Instagram Threads. You know it. I'm there. That was a pretty good episode, and maybe not as long as past episodes, and I'm happy for that. We kind of got through it all relatively easily. I've been GnittWitt. Thank you so much for checking out Glitch Report. We'll see you next week. Take it easy.